your Bitcoin prediction at one point is $1 million a coin. Are you still a big believer in Bitcoin?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Ever more so. First, global, private, no government oversight, digital, rules-based monetary system the world has ever known. That's a big idea. And we think the total crypto asset market in 2030 will be valued at roughly $25 trillion. Right now, it's a little over $1 trillion. And we think that Bitcoin is going to be more than half of that.
Do you have a prediction for this year or next year, 2024?
You know, we tend to be 5 years in our predictions. So the 5 to 7 year forecast is in base case would be 650,000, and then bull case would be about double that.
The bull run that was started after the halving in May 2020 had catalysts like Elon Musk put Twitter on his balance sheet and Tesla started accepting Bitcoin as payment, as well as moguls like PayPal accepting Bitcoin for payment, and all the internet's most brilliant minds, such as Jack Dorsey from Twitter, left their Web 2 jobs for Web 3 jobs and gravitated over to Web 3 in this massive brain drain of some of the smartest people in the world. Fast forward to today, after Bitcoin has matured as an asset during the years 20 to 2024. That's right, its adolescent stage. It is now flourishing. And this bull cycle is the narrative of the institutional money. As you've seen on another show that I've done with Michael Saylor's mega price prediction to $10 million, today we're going to look at Cathie Wood, CEO of Ark Invest, and their report, Big Ideas, that predicts that Bitcoin will be 1 million by 2030. And we're going to break down just exactly how she believes that's possible. And spoiler alert, she believes it's a conservative bet. But before we begin, first a special cameo from our good friend Michael Saylor on whether you should buy gold or Bitcoin for the foreseeable future to store your wealth.
If you want to turn 250 million into 6 billion, buy Bitcoin. Don't buy gold. If I bought gold, I would have had $250 million worth of gold instead of $6 billion worth of Bitcoin.
All right, gold bugs, Bitcoin believers, comment below if you agree with what Michael Saylor says, that we should toss the gold out the window and buy Bitcoin. But now that we're on the topic, it's not just Michael Saylor who says this. There's also an infamous clip by Mark Cuban from Shark Tank, the shark himself, talking about gold and why he believes this is no longer the asset to invest in. Check it out.
You know what? If you have gold, you're dumb as fuck.
It's a small part. It's like a hedge against everything else.
It's a hedgehog against everything, but
yes, it is.
Would
I be all in gold? No.
No, but it's not a hedge against anything, right? What it is a store of value, and you don't own the physical gold, do you?
No, of course. Well, I don't. Who the fuck knows? What I know is that it never goes away. It's always worth something. You can always sell it.
Just Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you and your ownership, you don't own the gold bar. And if everything went to hell in a handbasket and you had a gold bar, you know what would happen? Someone would beat the fuck out of you or kill you and take your gold bar.
And then they can use the bar to hit me.
To hit somebody, and that's it. You're not gonna. What are you gonna shave a little piece of gold so someone waves it?
I mean, Apple makes something. A phone is something real that you drop
really
in the toilet.
Need gold jewelry. The world.
No, but you're
gold
obsessed with gold. Most of the economy is not gold.
No, but the point
most of the economy is iPhones, which is a real
Bitcoin.
thing with real value,
but we're talking about,
and it's been valued at $1,000.
But we're talking about
pegged to something.
We're talking about Bitcoin. And Bitcoin,
which is pegged to nothing.
Which is, neither is gold, really. When you own gold, all you own is a digital transaction.
Which is why we're not mostly in gold.
And that's fine, right? I'm not mostly in Bitcoin, right? It's just something that I own.
Okay.
But it's this digital transaction, and it's a store of value. That's the term for it, a store of value. So people perceive that there's value associated with gold, and there's value associated with Bitcoin.
My name is Megan Nilsson, aka Crypto Megan, your host for today. So without further ado, let's dive right into it.
If we're right, that assumption alone, I have been in the markets for a long time, and as new asset classes evolve, what institutions do in particular is they tiptoe in. They start with 1%, and then they migrate to 2, and then they migrate to 5. So I think in this one, it's 2.5% for the base case. When there's a new asset class, it tends to end up in the 5 to 6% range. This happened to real estate. It happened to private equity, venture capital, which is now much more than 6% in many institutional funds. It happened to the whole category of emerging markets. And so I think it's that one alone is very conservative. And if you look at another one, the corporate balance sheets, Tesla, Square have Bitcoin on the balance sheets. But we make very cautious assumptions. And I think the corporate treasury assumption is 2.5% of all cash and cash equivalents in Bitcoin. And the bull case is 5%. If we're right and the purchasing power of Bitcoin becomes so obvious in the years ahead, meaning the purchasing power goes up instead of cash, dollars, staying pretty flat, if not in real terms deteriorating, then more and more corporate treasuries are going to be putting Bitcoin on their balance sheets. And in fact, they'll be the analysts will start questioning them. Why do you have 95% of your cash in a depreciating asset when you could put it into a cash equivalent like Bitcoin and have an appreciating asset?
So as we look under the hood of what it actually looks like for institutions to get into an asset like Bitcoin, we'll refer to what Cathie Wood predicts to be the tiptoeing in approach, meaning most institutions will start with 1%, end up in the median somewhere around 2 to 2.5%, and then eventually get to 5 to 6%, which happened with real estate. The interesting thing about that is Michael Saylor infamously says that Bitcoin will no longer be competing with assets like JPEG monkeys, which I'm an ape, full disclosure, I love Bored Ape Yacht Club, but he says it's going to mature as an asset and it'll be competing against real estate like owning a building or a block in New York. These are big ideas, and this is exactly how the institutions are going to get involved, slowly but surely. Cathie Wood's prediction, which she admits is on the conservative end for institutions to be between 2 to 2.5% by 2030, differs somewhat from what Michael Saylor projects to be true, which is around 30% eventually of all wealth in the world. Either way, I want you to get an idea of just how this is possible so you can open your mind to the wild amount of opportunity there is in this space right now and start allocating for your potential financial future in this market and your allocation to Bitcoin. Right now, we have the edge. We're here before institutions. We were saying it last cycle. We're still saying it this cycle, and it's not financial advice, but I am currently positioning myself to be able to retire off Bitcoin someday. And now we're going to dive into Cathie Wood's infamous $1 million Bitcoin price prediction by 2030.
We have a price target in 2030 for Bitcoin of more than $1 million per Bitcoin. And yeah, see, even you can't believe it. I expected a big roaring no, but and if you go in and you'll see how we build that case, we see institutional investors, all we expect over the next 8 years is that 2.5%, roughly 2.5% of assets, institutional assets, are allocated to Bitcoin. So we don't need a lot. And if it's more than that, and that's how institutional investors work, they tiptoe in. In the 70s, it was real estate. In the 80s, it was emerging markets, 80s and 90s. And now I think it's going to be crypto, starting with Bitcoin. And that's very important, starting with Bitcoin.
And attention to how she says start with Bitcoin. So if you are getting started in this market right now and you're wondering where to start out with a smaller allocation because Bitcoin, even if it does go on to do a 5 to 10x from here, it won't move a small amount of capital as much as some of the altcoins may. So she keeps emphasizing start. And we all know that the next thing Ark Invest is going to do is apply for an Ethereum ETF. And so, as she says, institutions will start to tiptoe into Bitcoin, and then it's just like the flow of money in normal investing in crypto. We start in Bitcoin, it trickles into Ethereum, and then into the large cap altcoins, and then into the mid to small cap altcoins. But in institutional's case, maybe it starts with Bitcoin, then heads to Ethereum, and possibly into some of those larger caps. So this is a key clue as to what to expect in the future.
If this is such a big idea, how big is it? And he said, well, how big is the US monetary base, the reserve currency's monetary base? Back then it was 4.5 trillion. Today it's 8 trillion. He said, there's your answer. There's your answer of how big this could be if this is going to become an effective global monetary system. And so we ran with it, and we have not stopped running, because you're right, we have just begun. And it is interesting to note that, we're up to 19 million Bitcoin, and we're going to 21 million. So the scarcity value argument, the store of value, is going to resonate even more, because I believe when the SEC does relent, and it will, now that Chairman Gary Gensler is calling, the controversy around the Bitcoin ETF his personal Vietnam. So he probably wants to get rid of it. Our COO, Tom Stout, feels that we will have, not we, maybe many people, many firms will be approved for a Bitcoin ETF. And when that happens, that will bring with it an institutional acceptance that really could highlight the scarcity value of Bitcoin. And institutions are not the only story. Thank you for reading our Big Ideas 2023, and in there you see our building blocks to a $600,000 to $650,000 price, and perhaps $1 to $1.5 million price by 2030. We think most people in the world, at the very least, should have some of their assets in Bitcoin as an insurance policy against confiscation of wealth.
Just how big of an idea is this? Massive, according to Cathie Wood, and that with this institutional adoption and the eventual approval of one of 10, at least 10 ETFs that we've known, that have applied to get their ETF approved, Bitcoin Spot ETF, that with that institutional acceptance will come so many other open doors. And she emphasizes that everybody should have some exposure to Bitcoin as a hedge against confiscation of wealth. Check this out.
That can happen in a number of ways. It can happen outright. So to see MBS in Saudi Arabia lock his cousins up in the Ritz Hotel and just take their wealth, that's confiscation. That's outright confiscation. And then, of course, there's inflation, which is also confiscation of wealth. It's a cruel tax. It's very regressive. And Bitcoin would be an important hedge against that for anyone, but especially for lower income people.
So as Cathie Wood points out, as a hedge against confiscation of wealth, just by the very nature of Bitcoin, you owning your own money and having sovereignty over your own money means nobody can tamper with it or take it away from you by any means. Michael Saylor most infamously says, "Nothing in this world that you think you own, do you own, except at the mercy of somebody more powerful than you." And for the first time in human history, we have true digital ownership, a portable digital property that we can pick up and take with us anywhere in the world if we don't like the laws in the jurisdiction where we live. And this is truly freedom. And please take note to what Cathie Wood says, because I get a lot of questions about this. She says this is a hedge against inflation, which is a really cruel tax. And it is especially bad for low-income people. People always ask me, isn't Bitcoin just for the rich? No. The middle class to lower class income families, their money is disappearing, evaporating over time, and it's becoming worthless. The wealthy people have different ways to diversify their wealth and access to different tools that middle class and lower class income families do not have. And for the first time now, we all have access to these tools. We're all on an equal playing ground, and we can conserve the value of our money. And it's truly, truly sensational. So far, we've broken down that according to Cathie Wood's and Ark Invest Big Ideas report and their price prediction of 1 million per coin by 2030, it will happen due to several factors. One being the inflow of institutional money that will start at 1.1%, work its way to 2 to 2.5% within the next 8 years, and eventually to 5 to 6%, just like real estate. So that's number one. Number two, people will realize and recognize that it is an insurance policy as a hedge against the confiscation of wealth, and also a flight to safety. So there you have it. I hope you have a much better understanding of just exactly why Cathie Wood and Ark Invest believe that Bitcoin will hit 1 million by 2030, how it's possible, and why it's even a conservative bet. If you want to, I'll throw it up here for you to check it out on the chart for yourself so you can study a little bit more. So after having seen this price prediction, what's your Bitcoin goal? There's a lot of numbers floating around there, but one of them in particular keeps sticking on YouTube, and it's 0.1 Bitcoin to be set in the future. So if that were your goal, just imagine if you bought 0.1 Bitcoin when Bitcoin was at 16,000. It would have cost you 1,600. Today at the Bitcoin price now at the time of recording, 0.1 Bitcoin would cost you $3,400. Comment below and let me know how you're stacking those sats, what your goals are, and how much you are aiming to accumulate for your future retirement and just to have that little slice of scarce digital portable property. I hope you liked today's episode. I'll see you tomorrow.